I've always been interested in Guster, just the name. Where did the name come from?
I don't know. It was 22 years. I was like, I think we were called Gus, and we were young, and I don't think we thought we'd still be talking about our band 22 years later, or else we probably would have thought of a different name.
Maybe spend a little time on it.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty
And
arbitrary at the point.
yeah,
At
and
the
the
time.
the band came together when you were all at Tufts University, right? That's in Massachusetts.
Correct.
It was 1991, so that's 20. I'm no math major, but like 24 years ago or something.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad, right? Was there a plan? Like, were you guys like, all right, this is it. This is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives?
No, no, I don't think that when we were 18 and we met in a dorm room that we anticipated, calling a DJ on Indianapolis radio 24 years later to talk about a show. It was sort of, we never really sort of planned, I think we just kind of were making music because it was fun, and then by the time we graduated from college, we figured out a way to do it. That was our job, and every time we make a record, I think it's just sort of a new experience, and we never know if people are going to like it or if people are going to show up at our shows. So yeah, I think it's we're constantly, kind of surprised so that we're, still able to kind of do it at this level, and we don't take that for granted by a long shot. Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey.
The band seems to play with new sounds every single time you guys release an album. Is that something, like, do you guys sit down and talk about that before writing the songs, or is it just something that sort of occurs naturally?
Yeah, I think it's kind of part of the DNA of the band at this point. Part of the reason we are still a band after all this time is that we try not to keep making the same record over and over, and we're still... I think bands break up and then they go on to do other things for creative reasons, but we've been able to sort of do that within the context of our band. So rather than us saying like, oh, okay, we've done that, let's all break up and go do something else, for whatever reason, we've been able to hammer it out and say like, okay, well, we want to work with this producer who makes this kind of records, or these are the sort of textures and sonics that we're interested in. These are the grooves, and this is the emotional component that we're kind of looking for. And so it's a really hard fought process to get four strong-minded individuals all on the same page, but it's been working out. I'm really proud of the music we've been making, and especially recently, and so it makes the work worthwhile for sure.
Do you worry about sort of maybe alienating some of your fan base by changing your sound?
Yeah, I think the first time that really came into sharp focus was we kind of built our career in the first 10 years with this percussion setup that Brian had built that was very unusual and novel, and we were strumming acoustic guitars, and I think after that record, Brian really didn't want to do that anymore, and it was such a part of our identity, and certainly a really interesting visual component of our live shows and sonic component that really a lot of bands had never done before. So, and then we kind of made this move into a much more traditional sound, and so we were definitely hesitant, but then we just have a thing in our band where it's all about the songs and the records, and we didn't want to be a novelty band, and we didn't want to be like, oh, that's the bongo band. I think we just wanted to be a great pop band and make great records. So we lost them. We lose people every time,
Right.
But we usually generally gain different ones back, and so it's been this process of like some people kind of stayed with us the whole way, and we've lost some people, and some people have left and then come back, and some people are coming in late, and it's worked out. We just played at Central Park to 4,000 people, and we just played in Boston to a free show to, like, I don't know, the newspaper said it was 50,000 people, and it's moments like that that make you feel like, all right, well, maybe they were doing this right. But songs win. I guess that's sort of the overreaching principle, is to try and listen to what we're trying to say musically.
You guys have an interesting relationship with your fans. There's a famous video of you picking people up in Los Angeles to run around and do errands, this sort of cruises that you guys do and that sort of thing. Do you ever get concerned about that? Maybe it breaks down that barrier a little too much? Letting the public get a little too close?
Sometimes when we do this stuff, it's sort of like this trust fall. But we haven't been hurt yet. And we're doing this cool thing. I think we're doing it at this show as well. It's sort of along the lines of that, where we were talking about who we should bring out to open, and we had this idea that we really got our start in Boston opening up for a lot of bands that had come through, and there were some very indelible moments opening for national acts where it became very clear to us that this is something we could do. And so one of the ways, I guess, even though this feels very markety, but it actually is coming from this real place of like doing the fans is finding high school and college bands to open up Earth in every market.
No,
And
that's
sort
not.
of being like, well, cool, well, we're going to actually listen to your stuff, and we're going to choose you, and maybe we'll play a song, or vice versa, because we just knew how important that was for us coming up, to have these moments that we interface with these bigger bands. And so stuff like that, I guess it can read one of two ways. It can feel really like, oh, wow, these guys are sort of found this cool, weird way to market themselves. But for me, it is sort of like, well, this is going to make that fan relationship even stronger, and the fans of the bands that are opening up for it. When ideas like that happen and they feel like they work on all levels, I think we're just kind of into it. And so that's why we kind of do that stuff. It's like, it's fun for us. It's fun for them. It helps the whole thing feel like I'm a 42-year-old man, so I could be doing a lot of things, but this is all, when moments like that happen and it feels really cool and really sincere and organic, and then I think we're willing to go for it.
Right, not afraid to run into that just one guy who's maybe too big of a fan. Just look out for him.
Yeah, they're vetted for the most part, but yeah, that's just the world we live in. Some people can kind of live. Beyonce lives in a different world than we do, and we're very accessible. And I write back to people on Twitter, and that's just the kind of band we used to sleep on our fans' couches when we were touring for the first 4 years in the band. So
right.
It's just part of who we are.
The writing process, I want to talk a little bit about that, the process of actually writing the songs for Guster. Is it like a group effort, or do you handle most of it? Is it passed around? How does it work? How do you guys work that out?
It kind of works in all different ways. On this record, Luke showed up with a song with and a melody, and then I've written a couple songs also. But the bulk of it is just us kind of sitting together in a room and, jamming, for lack of a better term, and all of us have an opinion about stuff and trying to make sure that we can all, there's a Venn diagram of the four of us, really trying to thread that middle ground. But it's a very, very collaborative process, even though we all kind of have the places where I write 95% of lyrics, and I write most of the melodies, but the musical part. So we all have our domains within the songwriting part. Very collaborative stuff.
The new album is called Ever Motion. Is that sort of a reference to the ever-changing style of the band?
You got it. Look at that.
Look at that.
Yeah,
See?
I didn't want to I think there is a little bit of, the longer we do this, the more that the longevity becomes part of this conversation, which, I sort of welcome at this point, because
right.
It is very interesting. But I think the Ever Motion component is sort of like, let's just keep moving.
I happen to be a big film buff, and I know you've done some film scores, so just to peer away from Guster for just a moment, how does that work for you? How is that different than writing songs for Guster when you're writing? You've done, Safety Not Guaranteed, and I know In a World?
Yeah, it's sort of on this thing of where I'm just trying to, as a grown man with a family, it came out of it just trying to stay creative. And because we all started having kids 7 years ago, we all have a couple kids each, and so I sort of came up like, well, what am I going to do as this sort of aging, touring musician? And I started scoring films, and it felt this sort of light bulb moment where it was a way for me to be really creative and also be participating in this collaborative environment, which I really enjoy. And it really helped a lot, even on the new record, because it just made me a lot more fearless in terms of what we could do with textures. Like, as a film composer, you can use strings, or you can use steel drums, or you can use a ukulele, and that kind of fearlessness in film scoring really I tried to bring to bear when we made our record of just we can do whatever we want. It definitely all kind of has this feedback loop, and it feels very natural, and it's been super fun to do. So our summer tour is basically ending this week, and I'm going to start working on 2 movies, which is awesome. And I feel it's something I've been working really hard to try and do, and it's been great.
Right. Don't you ever just want to relax, though?
I mean, some. I also live in Vermont. It's the summer, and I'm like, oh man, I just signed up to do these movies. I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to be able to go swimming and stuff. But
right.
being a film composer is very similar to being in a band, and there's a lot of people that want to do it who are pretty talented, and you kind of have to. It's an endless hustle. The second that you kind of relax or sort of feel like it's a part-time job, I think you sort of. I'm still in that part of my life where I'm just really part of the Ever Motion thing. It's I still want to stay really scared and I'm very curious about stuff, and I want to, just kind of keep creating and be fearless. So that's kind of just my drive. But I don't work that hard. I don't want to oversell it. You know what I mean?
24 years. What's the biggest moment to you? What's the one thing that really sticks out of Guster's run?
Whoa. One moment, like what do you think? What kind of moment? Like
I don't know.
Just indelible, just like
just sort of that big indelible moment, or maybe it's that moment of like, hey, look at this, we did it. Maybe you had an aha, we made it moment. Whatever it is.
It definitely was never that. We've had an interesting arc in the terms of like we never had a hit song where we were. This is like it just never happened like that for us. We've never been a huge press band, and we've never had like a huge song on the radio that's like the top of the charts and changed the game. We've had this very slow and steady sort of thing happen, and we've had moments where things have happened. Like we worked with Steve Lillywhite on our third record, and that really helped kind of bring. We finally made a record that we were proud of, and we hadn't. Our first two records, we just never had we didn't have a good experience. And selling out Radio City, or even just this last week in Boston, and standing in front of all those people, and kind of having this moment of like, wow, here we are, kind of this far into it, and we're not trading on nostalgia. We play our new songs, and they're just as well received as our old songs, and we're kind of still doing it at this weird level. It just feels very, very vindicating, because it's a very, I think it's kind of an unusual journey for a band to kind of have the longevity that we've had and still not feel like it's all based on stuff that they did 15 or 20 years ago.
Right.
A lot of people. I meet so many fans, like grown women that are like, I started listening to you in junior high, or my parents used to like play me a record like teenage, when I was like 5 years old. So that kind of stuff starts to feel like, oh wow, we're really kind of doing something cool here.
All right, one last question, and then I'll let you go. I've taken up enough of your time, but this is always something kind of fun. What do you think you would be doing right now had you not started Guster and gone on to rock stardom? What kind of job would you have?
I hope there's air quotes around that rock stardom quote.
Well, that's something else that I'm always fascinated by, is the concept of rock star, but I don't think we have time to delve into that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and I don't know. Like here I am, kind of doing this other thing with film composing, which feels very natural. And I host a show on Vermont PBS called Making Friends with Ryan Miller, where I like go run around and meet super weird, cool people, and that feels really natural. But it all kind of came out of the confidence of being in a band for so long. Being in a band for so long kind of gave me the confidence to do both those things. So I don't know. It's a great question, and thankfully I don't have to answer it.
Right, yeah. I guess people don't sit around and think about, well, if I had failed, this is what I would do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that at this point in my life, it's become really clear that the most satisfied that I am is when I'm really working hard, and this sounds so pretentious, but like on just being an artist, and again, it's like making sure that you challenge yourself and that you work with people that can elevate you, and I would hope in this alternate sliding doors life that didn't actually exist, that I would still be in pursuit of really making cool stuff and being a cool person.
Right.
Being kind and thoughtful and fearless and all that stuff. Might be a little esoteric of an answer for morning radio, but that's how I feel.
All right. Thanks for taking some time out to join us this morning, Ryan. I do appreciate it. We're looking forward to it. Guster, November 13th at Old National Center. It's part of WTTS Rock to Read, presented by Giacomo Upper Crust Pizza. Tickets go on sale today.
Giacomo Upper Crust Pizza. I want some of that. Sounds delicious.
It is delicious.
All right. Can't wait.